Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the All New 52 podcast. I am Joe. This is Caleb. We like comics on this podcast. Stuff may seem different this week. I don't have a beard. Caleb's a little under the weather, but we're just going to keep trucking on and shooting a bow and arrow. I was kind of going to try to work it in, and I couldn't come up with it off the top of my head. We're reading Hawkeye.
Yeah, we're going to shoot straight with y'all on our opinions.
There we go.
Yeah, on the Matt Fraction David Ayer run of Hawkeye. Also called sometimes Hawkeye My Life as a Weapon.
Hawkeye Marvel Now.
Technically Hawkeye Volume 4. So
what do you know?
Yep.
So for those that don't know, I feel like everybody who's into comics has heard of this comic. I certainly have. Not just because of you, but just this is like
it's the comic.
It's like one of the comics that like you gotta read it.
This comic has like pull quotes on it. Comics don't get pull quotes on them that often.
It's pretty wild. It's a lot. This is half the run, correct?
Yes.
It's the first 11 issues plus one issue of Young Avengers.
Yes.
I didn't read that one. Was I supposed to?
Yes. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about it. Because
okay. You kept bringing it up. I remember I was like, that sounds to me like I'm not supposed to read it.
No, I told you very explicitly last episode.
No, it's been a while.
I'm going to talk about it.
That's fine.
This can be like you talking about the Invincible TV show.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. I do that to you all the time, so I deserve a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Hawkeye follows the story of Clint Barton.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of, I don't know if I want to say he's down on his luck or is that's just his normal luck normally.
Yeah, he's not what you would call a stable, functioning adult.
And it's like the life and times of Clint Barton. Like that's really all it is.
The description on the first page, there's a little bit where he's like kind of joking around and he gets injured. And then it cuts to this description page where it's like, Hawkeye is blah, blah, blah. Member of the Avengers, fights with the Earth's mightiest heroes. This is what he does when he's not working for them.
Yeah.
And that's it. They
constantly bring up, you're an Avenger, aren't you? Like, shouldn't you be cooler?
And people are constantly comparing him to Iron Fist because David Ayer also drew Iron Fist. So.
Makes sense. That cross-promotion synergy.
Yeah.
It's great. It's good stuff. Good stuff. I don't really know what we can say for a synopsis of the story because this is just the life and times.
So it's very episodic. There are kind of two major plots running throughout. There is Hawkeye's continued anger or like aggression towards a Russian mafia. They're called the Tracksuit Vampires.
Bro.
Yeah, bro.
Bro.
And it begins simple enough. They own the building he lives in and they want to sell it. And he's like, no. And he kind of bullies them into having him buy the building from them. And then it just kind of keeps escalating until they, we'll get to that. But eventually they go to the other big crime bosses, Madam Mask, Kingpin, Tombstone, and they're like, can we deal with this? And they're all like, killing an Avenger is a little spicy, but, why not? The other is his relationship with Kate Bishop, the younger Hawkeye, who had taken the title after Hawkeye died. And their friendship, mentorship, and eventually fractured relationship at the end of this story, with her eventually being like, you are too much of a mess to be around. I am going to California, and I'm taking your dog.
Not Lucky.
Not Lucky the pizza dog.
That's Lucky. Gotta love Lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of has his own supporting cast of characters. Not too much overlap from the greater Marvel universe that you normally see in these books.
Much like Harley Quinn that we read on here, the tenets of the building make up a lot of the supporting cast.
Which I enjoyed, but I also had issues with.
Well, we have segments.
Though, so we'll get a little tidbit for the viewers.
Yeah. And also, I guess the one last thing we will say is, while also being very episodic, these are also very novel structures to each of the issues. They can be anything from like a straightforward story to a nonlinear story to a dog's perspective on what's going on. So it's kind of all over the place.
So I think one of the most striking things about this book is the art.
Yes.
And lucky for us, we have an art segment dedicated to talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Caleb, I know this is your book and all.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I know what your thoughts are about to be. What do you think of David Aya's art?
He is probably my favorite artist, and I've only ever read this book from him. Like, I love this art so much. It is, out of everything on my shelf, and I've got some good stuff on my shelf, this is what I would constantly go back to as like the epitome of what you can do with a mainstream comic. And I love that he like brings in all these different like pop influences into there, because this is a series that is very retrospective in what it's pulling from, and that's definitely the case with the art. But probably the best thing is the layouts. I love the layouts in this. They are so clever.
You can basically take any of these panels, and if like you were able to get rid of the word balloons, it'd be like a little poster. Like,
Yes.
they're all very striking.
But like each of those panels then plays into like a much better, this fell off like a while back. They play much better into like this whole really cool way of segmenting the story. And half of the story, half of the pacing is told through the layout. Like the story structure, Matt Fraction had nothing to do with it. Half of it was David Aya in a way that I don't think writers allow their artists to do that often.
He's pretty good. He's got a style. I think it's kind of to the detriment sometimes, because while everything can be a poster, you don't want every frame being a poster. His stuff blends together a little too much for me. Had a lot of trouble distinguishing some characters starting off and continuing too. Mainly a lot of the love interests, all the ladies.
Yes.
Couldn't tell you any of their names. They all blended together for me.
I couldn't tell you Black Widow's name.
See, yeah. I thought it was Black Widow. I just didn't know for the longest time.
Yeah, no.
I thought it was her, but then like someone else would show up and they looked exactly like her. And I was like, wait, is it Black Widow? I'm not sure.
Yeah, there isn't much distinguishing features on the people,
which is cool. It gives him his own style, but you give and you take.
Yeah. Do you have any other negatives? Because I have more positives. I have a lot more positives.
I have more things to say, yes, but not about David Aya.
Okay. I love the colors in this.
The colors are very good. They're like muted, but they pop too.
Yeah, Hollingsworth is the last name of the colorist, but I really want to bring them in and credit them, Matt Hollingsworth, because they only use 6, 7 colors throughout the entire book, but they were very intentional with how they spread those out and how they paired those characters with like events, and how like these colors would be reused here, but because we're pairing it with a different color than over here, it looks completely different, which is super clever. And I guess the final thing I'll say is there's a car chase sequence in here. Car chases are very hard to do on the page, and I was actually reading a letters page from another comic book that I won't tell you because we are going to read it on the podcast once it's done. But it's the artist talking about everything that goes through the
colorist or the artist.
Yeah, the artist.
Okay.
All the difficulty that the artist has to like navigate and being able to convey the motion from panel to panel. And I think the issue 3 Cherry, which has the car chase and probably an action set piece that we will see in the show just based off of the trailers, is my like peak. This is the best a car chase can get in a comic book. It is so legible and so exciting. Do
you have any more to say about Mr. David?
I'll hold off. Okay. I think I've spent my time.
I have a lot to say about. Let me find, because I wrote down one of their names and I had a lot to say about Steve Lieber, Jesse Ham, and Javier Pulido.
They all do different issues.
They're the guest artists who come in for a couple different issues.
Yeah, some try to match, one doesn't.
Both are attempting to stay within the same realm, I think.
The one that tells Clown's backstory is not. The one at the
Agree
very
to disagree.
end.
I think they're both trying to stay within the same style, but they definitely, like, you can see their own flares popping up. There was Javier Pulido's, I'm butchering your name, I'm sorry, but Javier's issue, he I was like, wait, something's different now. Like I didn't notice it straight off, and then you see the facial expressions, vastly different.
Yes.
I think vastly better. They give it, this whole book has a kind of sense of timelessness, but also like it's like, oh, this is like the grungy 90s, like at the same time.
Yeah.
His feels like it's straight out of the 60s with the art style and the faces of everybody. They're very exaggerated, and when there's like a close-up of Kingpin at one point, he's like, man, it's just a hilarious, because he's got like an egghead already.
Yeah. That's in the tape.
Yes, that's the two-part story where it's all the like crime bosses and stuff. I really like that one. Madame Mask has,
I love Madame Mask.
It's a mask, but it's very defined in this. I really like the style they bring, because it's not a vast art change, but just with the way they draw their faces, I loved it so much more.
Yeah, and that's.
I was sad when I went back to David Ayer.
I guess the danger of having, because we read a lot of comic books where a lesser artist will get brought on, and you're like, man, go back to the good art. But I guess the problem of having a bunch of good artists guest is that when you have a good artist, your reader might like him more.
Yeah.
Briefly, I will mention that returning artist to our podcast, Alan Davis, returning artist who also drew Excalibur. He drew the Young Avengers issue at the back of this. And this is really why I wish you would have read that, besides the fact that it gives like Kate Bishop more context.
Probably would have helped, because she's one of my, she's someone I have an issue with.
Yeah. But I wish you would have read that, because I think it would be interesting to hear your take on how his art style changed, because I think he is still a very talented artist, and this might just be my problem with exposure. And everything I've read that he has drawn in the modern day, I think that digital colors ruin his art. I think he writes, or he draws for an older style of comic, and he just never quite found the chemistry between.
It's like the filling in of the lines, where it's like, kind of expect this stuff to drift a little bit, and with digital comics, like paint fill.
And it's not bad either. It's just, it's not as good as what he was doing back in the 80s. And I wish, I'd be curious to hear other people whose exposure to him has just been modern comics. And if they feel that, like if they feel something's off, or if that's, Excalibur poisoning my eyes a bit.
Yeah. I'm sorry I wasn't able to fill in a little bit more on that. That's my fault.
The listeners can do that.
Yeah. Email allnew52podcast@gmail.com and tell Caleb how you feel about Alan Davis.
All our listeners who have read both Excalibur and issue 4 of...
They've heard us talking about it, that's Avengers. For sure. I think that's all we have to say about the art, really, unless Caleb just wants to just gush even more.
We have talked about the art so much here, so I think...
We'll move along.
Yeah.
The pros, the positives, the goods. I really like how Clint Barton's just down on his luck fella, but gosh darn does he keep trying.
Yeah.
It's so endearing. Every time they're doing the little bow and arrow thing where he's like, it's a letter at a time, and he's just like, man, I'm not as good as I used to be.
Yeah.
You want to root for this guy.
Yes. His tenacity is very contagious. And I like that the book is both able to be critical of the fact that, man,
he's a mess.
Most of your bad luck is self-sabotage, but also you never feel like you want to stop focusing on him.
I love the dog. I love the issue dedicated to the dog.
I was worried you'd hate that.
No, I liked it.
Yay.
Because I didn't like the rest of the book.
Okay, that's fair. I figured that, because this is like one of the most popular comics. Of course,
I don't like popular things.
You don't like all popular things.
Yeah.
You're a bit of a contrarian, but that's why we love you. It's better than being a shill.
Yeah, it's a nice, especially coming at the end of this, which I guess this would have been the middle of the whole run. Coming at the end of this, and I'm just like, oh, cool, laid back issue. I don't have to think too much.
Yeah,
it's just the dog doing dog things, being fun.
Yeah,
telling the story with the good art.
Yeah. I like the characterization of Hawkeye a lot, but you talked about him and you kind of nailed it down. So I'm going to talk about the other Hawkeye. I really like Kate Bishop. I really like her personality. It is hinted at here. I think later in the run, it gets fleshed out a bit. I totally understand you maybe not attaching to this character right away. But both in this run and in the issue of Young Avengers, I really like how they fleshed that out in moments like when there's a flood in New Jersey and she has to go like save like a little pharmacy from looters. And I really like the little bit moments you see of her there. I like the Young Avengers is all about Hawkeye coming back after his death and being like, okay, you can't be Hawkeye, it's me now. But then you find out he's like, nah, I just want to help these kids, but they need a little bit of a push. Like they need a little bit of motivation. I really like that. It's fun.
I think she has really good moments, and they kind of just stay as moments because the TV feeling of this hurts it at some points where it's like, I don't feel like a lot of these people have any progression at all, except for Clint.
I think that's a very fair criticism of the first half of the run.
Okay. Yeah. I was wondering, I was like, am I just missing something here? Or like, is it just very stagnant for a little bit?
That's a common criticism I've heard, and I think it's fair.
I do like the tape story a lot. I think that's the standout.
It's
for
the most
me.
superhero-y.
Yeah. It was a nice change after 3 issues of just like, oh, I've fallen into a rut already.
It sets up Madame Mask, who I really like.
I love Madame Mask.
Yeah, she gets played up more as time goes on.
I love that Kate just impersonates her, and it's like, oh, no one knows.
yeah. And I think it's really cool.
I love Kingpin's egghead.
Yeah.
He doesn't do too much in this, but he's just every single time they show him. Meh.
I really appreciate whenever you see all the mob bosses together, I can actually recognize who they are now. When in the past it was just, oh, I recognize Kingpin, and they're telling me that her name's Madame Mask. Because I read this very early on in me getting into comics. So I think that's cool. Another big positive for me is I like the supporting cast a lot. Grills is a great character.
Hey, Hawkeye.
Yeah, I love him. He's just, and his issue where there's an issue where he takes Hawkeye to help him move his father out of Far Rockaway because there's a hurricane coming in. I love that issue. That's like top 5 single issues of all time because it is so willing to sit with this character who is such a minor player and flesh them out.
Girls is fun. Everybody's like fun.
Yeah.
There's not a character, a supporting character that I'm like, get away. Like no one's detracting really.
Mm-hmm. The car chase I've already mentioned. I really like that. I like the other cool part about that I haven't mentioned is showing all the trick arrows because most of the
boomerang arrow.
Yeah, boomerang arrow. It comes back. The most of the archery in this is kind of standard stuff, but this is the one issue where you get let out and it's like all the silliness can be on full display.
And I feel that's to the comic's benefit, especially because it's one of the first things. It's in the second issue, I feel like.
Second or third, yeah.
Yeah, so you get all the fun stuff. It's like, this is the kind of ride we're in for.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the third because the second is the circus one. Because that introduces Kate Bishop.
Okay. These issues blended together for me for the most part.
Yeah, they are episodic.
Yeah.
And I guess my final positive, since one of my big positives is the art, I really like the banter in this. I think Matt Fraction has the characters bouncing off of each other really well. I like whenever he does big crowd scenes and you just get like little bits of the conversation, like whenever the tenants are hanging up on the rooftop. And I think that a big part of the reason that I attached to Kate Bishop so early on without knowing anything about her, because when I read this, I didn't have any context for who she was because she and Clint were like arguing most of the time. But it's like fun arguing.
Yeah. So they're not, you're a mess. We know it. We still love you, but I'm going to call you out.
Yeah. It's great. All right. Break my heart, Joe. What do you hate about this?
Hate's such a strong word. I don't hate too much. I was having this conversation earlier where little side tangent. I'm known as the guy who doesn't like a lot of things. And I said, it's not that I don't like it, or it's not that I hate it. I just don't like it. Then there's like, why don't you just say it's okay? Because I don't like it. Like I'm apathetic towards most things.
Yeah.
Like this. Like I said earlier, I think the art kind of blends together a little too hard. It makes it a little hard to not follow the pacing of events, but just distinguish characters and just get a sense of progression almost. A lot of, I don't think the emotions or the facial emotions are there a lot of the time because you can only do so much when it's just like shadows that make up your eyes.
Yeah.
Very striking. I like the aesthetic. Just think it fails to deliver in a long-form storytelling concept.
More stylized, less humanized.
Yeah. Which, looks great.
Yeah.
But, style over substance sometimes, in my opinion. Which brings me to the long-form storytelling of this. What's the word? Not wait. Is it wait on me? Would I say is that a way to describe it?
I don't know what you're trying to describe yet.
The opposite of grew on me kind of dragged me down a little bit.
It was draining, yeah.
Yeah, that was like I like the nice breaks in artists where it felt like the story changed completely with the art. Like it just breathed new life into something that was like, okay, this is like watching a TV show that I'm not really invested in, but I was like, I'm already at this point. Also, I have to do a show about this. Like it's just not my thing. When you like the banter between the people on like the rooftops and stuff, it's distracting to me. Where I'm like, there's so many words on this page and so much stuff that I don't care about these words. I don't think it's necessarily that Matt Fraction is a bad writer because I think he is bringing a lot of this humanization. He's bringing needed humanization into the story he's trying to tell. It doesn't detract from what I thought it was going to be. It's just I don't vibe with it.
I'm going to bring this back. We're going to read the next volume of it eventually.
Okay.
I would like you in between then and now to read the Young Avengers one.
I'll probably do it right after this just because I forgot.
Yeah, but because that's a much more like standard Fractions, like a standard comic story. It's not stylized at all. I wonder if you would jive with Fraction more there, or if he would just feel anonymous. Like if Fraction's hallmarks only stand out in a super stylized story.
Yeah, because I mean he did Fantastic Four. He didn't feel like a component to that.
Yeah.
He felt invisible in that. So
well,
I don't know if it's just because he was like given more free reign with this.
Yeah, and I guess to point that out, I felt most of Fraction stuff most in the FF stuff from that run, which
because it was more stylized.
Yeah,
and maybe I didn't feel him because I just was not jiving with that in any way, shape, or form.
Interesting.
Hawkeye's narration drags me down a little bit. It's just I read Brian Michael Bendis books. I'm used to a lot of words on screen on page, and I was like, man, this is getting close to that point. At some points where I was just like, this is too much. I don't know. I feel like I'm just like ragging at this point.
I got a couple negatives.
Yeah, give me time to recollect.
I think the first two issues both have moments where they drag. I get it. They're both setting up stuff. Like the first one sets up the tracksuit mob, and it sets up Lucky, and it just kind of sets up the tone. The second one's all about setting up kind of the Clint's backstory in the circus, but also his relationship with Kate and getting her on board. But it really takes until issue 3 that it really hooks me in. Even rereading this, knowing that I love it, having read it multiple times, it still takes to that third issue to be like, okay, we're back at it. The other thing is I'm not crazy about all the fill-in artists. I think that some of them are too different, and specifically the second to last issue here.
I think that's issue. Wait, second last issue?
The one that tells Clown's backstory.
Oh, yeah.
The Clown's backstory. It's good art, but
I didn't know that was a separate artist. There's two distinct moments. I just thought there was a different colorist or something like that. I thought they were just doing something weird.
Yeah, no, it's completely different, and it always kind of brings me out of the comic a little bit. I appreciate it. Like, it's not bad, technically. It's just it kind of throws me off. And yeah, I do think while I like Clint and Kate's relationship, there are some weird parts where it's like, she is underage.
Yeah, and they do a really early joke about like, oh yeah, I don't want to be with you. It's like you didn't have to say that. She's a kid.
I think it's setting it up to be like, guys, you shouldn't expect this. But I'm like, I wouldn't have expected it.
Yeah,
but now
like,
I do.
But now you've put the thought in my head.
And then later you see Kate's room and she has a Lolita poster up there. And I get it. It's just you're referencing like pop culture. But that's kind of a weird pick.
I don't care for Kate. I thought I would like her. I also thought this was her introduction into just the MCU, into the Marvel universe. I didn't know she was established before
Yeah,
this.
she had been in Young Avengers. I think she led the Young Avengers team.
Yeah,
because Hawkeye dies and Captain America gives her, and this is like post Civil War, so Cap is kind of not in good graces.
Cap's about to die.
he kind of builds up this Young Avengers team, and he gives her the bow and be like, "You're Hawkeye now." Which is, it's a cool legacy, and she has to live up to that. And I'm sure that's cool, like moments in the Young Avengers comic, but I like it more here where she can just be, hey, I'm just going to be messing around with Hawkeye.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because I didn't know who she was and she's coming in more established, but all I got off of her was snarky, just snark, nothing else. There's nothing that I know about this character other than she is snarky.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that her two character traits here is that she's snarky and that she's rich. Because she brings that up a lot.
Mm-hmm. Everybody in the Marvel universe is rich, though, except for Hawkeye.
No, Hawkeye's also rich. He just doesn't act like it.
The rich thing's never a personality trait to me with Marvel comics anymore, or any comics really.
How do you like when other Avengers characters drop in here?
Like Cap?
Yeah, like Cap or Iron Man pops in. Not as Iron Man, it's just Tony Stark. In the beginning of the Christmas issue, you have a little bit with Wolverine and Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. Character-wise, I don't feel anything. I just like seeing them in this style. It's nice to, his art's nice to look at.
Yeah, fun novelty.
Yeah. And especially Cap shows up in like more of that like 60s style thing. I feel like I'm like, hey, it just looks like one of his old comics.
Yeah.
That's fun. I don't have too much else to say about it. It's like, I feel like I just come into this with more negatives because like, here's the stuff that makes me not like it. And then there's like just not really anything that makes me want to like
But I mean, whenever you dislike a comic book, it's not like you're stretching for reasons. It's not like you're looking for them. It's just you have an honest reaction, and maybe it goes against the grain a little bit.
One more thing. I do actually have one more thing. It's not about the book. The book itself. I feel like we always talk about trades and how they're collected and stuff, and I understand this is not the normal trade it was sold in. But get 11 issues of kind of the same thing, I think also factored into it. It like where I was like, oh, I got more of this to go through.
I don't think that's a trade problem. I think that's an overall story problem because you'd have that exact same problem if you were reading it month to month.
Yes, but I'm wondering, which maybe this isn't a trade problem. I'm more thinking to myself, I usually want stuff to be longer. Like I usually want more. I wonder how it would have done in the original trade where it's like 5 issues. Like I didn't get sick of it.
Yeah.
I was just okay with it for the most part. I wonder if I would have had a different reaction if we'd only read 5 issues and then we like gone to the next 5 or something like that. Just food for thought.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think my rebuttal to that, and it's more of a problem with what I bring to you than I guess, is that because these are the hardcovers and because they came out after the paperbacks, this is meant more for binge reading, and especially where it leaves off, because the next half of the book is very different structurally. So I feel like you're not supposed to think about that when you're reading this because you're going to go straight from this to volume 2.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I give you Ultimate Spider-Man in the big hardcovers.
Yeah.
I get it. That I feel like that works a little better because it's a more streamlined story and not so episodic. And maybe the second half of Hawkeye will be more like that since it is so different.
I'll just go ahead and tell you what it is since I'm going to force you to read it anyway.
Yeah.
It alternates between Hawkeye in like Clint Barton and him doing like apartment stuff and specifically him going up against the mob. And then it cuts to Kate doing
Okay, I knew that. That's what I think that's what I was expecting going into this, and then I didn't get that.
Yeah, so it's two completely different storylines, and then at the end, Kate, kind of after having a coming of age arc, comes back and helps Hawkeye in like the final issues.
Yeah, because I always see this cover, but Kate's also on it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was expecting a more like intertwined thing, not with Kate as just this like, yeah, she's kind of here sometimes.
Yeah, and she plays a huge part in the storyline that follows Fractions.
I feel like I'd be interested in that more too.
Yeah.
So,
well, I have a
look
lot
forward
of it.
to.
Yes, I have a lot of it, so we can read a lot of Hawkeye.
Yeah. That's my thoughts on Hawkeye.
Yeah. Still one of my favorite comics. I think this is probably the best Marvel comic.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that hurts me as an X-Men fan.
Wow.
But,
was, whoa. I see why people like this.
Yeah.
I find it weird that this is like a suggested first comic.
It works for me.
I guess so.
I think it's because there's not a bunch of continuity.
Maybe.
So.
Yeah, I get it.
Who knows?
Not for me.
Yeah.
Another episode of Joe Dislikes Something Caleb Gives Him. What do you know?
That's fine.
I feel bad sometimes.
I think the only time you had... Never mind, I won't get into that. Yeah, I think you had valid criticisms here.
I have something for you.
Alrighty. For those of you who are enjoying the Hawkeye television show right now, I'd love to hear... it will probably be starting soon. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you want to shoot me a DM at Caleb from the Real World on Instagram, I'd love to know what people are thinking about because I am very interested. I won't necessarily say excited, but obviously it's going to take a lot of cues from the Matt Fraction run. I hope it's just that. I hope it's cues and that they're not trying to completely rip things. I'm fine with like the mob being in here, which we see in the trailers. I'm fine with them taking like similar moments from the car chase. I just hope they don't feel the need to constantly reference that stuff at the cost of the story.
This is going to be a bit of a stretch. I wish I had a different product.
Okay, can I look at? Oh, this is the flex tape. I don't need to open my eyes. I know what this is.
Okay. Well, don't. You can open your eyes. Just don't look down. That's where.
Okay.
Oh, I need to. So you know what flex tape is?
Yeah, it seals perfectly.
Yes. And what is another line in the flex family?
Flex. It's like flex. It's not flex goo, is it?
It's flex seal.
Flex seal.
There is also like flex liquid.
So seal, like the artist Seal who did Kiss from a Rose. Is this something Batman related?
No.
Okay, never mind.
But what do you do with flex seal? You can even dip your tools in it.
Yeah.
And it covers
gives
them.
it a grip.
It covers them in a black like substance.
Oh, are we doing Venom?
We
just did Spider-Man.
I know, but that's an unfortunate side effect of me wanting to get through this comic. You said we would never do a Venom book on the last episode of Hot Trash Unlimited. I was like,
no, fool. This is a Spider-Man.
This book. Is a well. You said we'd never do something Venom related. I was like, I
don't like Venom. And this isn't like a thing where Caleb says he doesn't like manga because it's something he's never read. I've read Venom. I don't like Venom.
Well, we'll see if this does anything to change your point of view on Venom.
All right.
It didn't for me.
That's promising.
We're jumping back into Ultimate Spider-Man. Funny, because we'll come back to Hawkeye eventually, so we're going to jump back into something else at this time. It's the next... it's like one of the biggest arcs in the fandom. I guess you'll see why.
Alrighty, let's do this.
Ultimate Spider-Man. So if you've liked what we've had to say about Hawkeye, specifically me, if you like me ragging on it, feed me. Give me more negative energy. I grow with it. I love it. Email allnew52podcast@gmail.com with all your critiques, criticisms, and suggestions. We love them.
We especially love suggestions so that I don't keep getting the same comic from Joe every 2 episodes.
How dare you?
I love you, Joe.
We'll be back next week with this. Not next week. Whenever the episode gets posted, you'll see it. Bye.
Bye.